I gave up college, my 20s, and any shot at a normal life for a bakery I was never meant to keep. My name's Jenna Whitaker. I'm 29 now, and I've spent the last decade running Whitaker's Pie House, my family's little bakery in a small town outside Madison, Wisconsin. We're the kind of place that still hand-folds crusts and closes early on Sundays. Or we were. Growing up, the bakery was basically my second home. My dad, Rick, was a local legend around here. People used to joke that his cherry pies could end a divorce. My mom passed when I was 12, and from then on, it was just the two of us running that place. I started helping behind the counter when I was 14, baking full-time by 17, and when Dad had a minor stroke during my freshman year at UW-Madison, I dropped out and came home without a second thought. "You'll have your name on the door someday," he told me. "This place is yours." I believed him. I lived for that promise. For 10 years, I worked open to close almost every day. We didn't have a big staff. Just me, Dad when he was feeling up for it, and sometimes our high school weekend help. I handled suppliers, made dough at 5 a.m., trained newbies, dealt with tax season, and somehow still found time to pipe Happy Retirement Edna on cakes that needed it. I skipped weddings, baby showers, and vacations. My last real day off was my 25th birthday. I remember it because I spent it unclogging the kitchen sink and crying into a mop bucket. But I kept going, because this was my future. I was keeping the family legacy alive. Then last fall, my cousin Sierra moved back from Chicago. Sierra is everything I'm not. Stylish, outspoken, and blessed with the kind of charm that makes people hand her opportunities before she even finishes her pitch. She went to college for digital marketing, worked at some agency that catered to wellness brands, and posted a lot of aesthetic cappuccino shots on Instagram. We hadn't spoken more than a few sentences a year for over a decade. Suddenly, she was back in town, crashing in our guest room, saying she needed a break from city life. I didn't think much of it. We were family, and if she needed a soft landing, I was glad we could offer it. About 3 weeks later, Dad started using phrases like modernizing the brand and customer engagement strategy. I assumed he was reading too many business magazines, but then one morning, I'll never forget it, I went to print the inventory sheet and noticed a full-color proposal coming out of the machine. It had a glossy header that said, "Strategic Rebranding, Whitaker's 2.0, presented by Sierra Moore." I thought maybe it was something she'd mocked up for practice. But curiosity got the better of me, and I flipped through it. Page after page of suggested logo redesigns, menu changes, social media campaigns. There were plans to turn our classic pies into small-batch artisan hand tarts, whatever the hell that means. And tucked in the back, projected financials, investor interest, and a 3-phase timeline that ended with new ownership structure to be formalized by Q2. I just stood there, holding it, trying not to drop the damn paper. It felt like the air had left the room. My name wasn't on any of it. That night, I asked Dad about it, calmly. I said, "Hey, what's Sierra working on?" "I found her rebranding doc at the printer." He blinked once, then said, "Oh, right. We've been meaning to loop you in." Loop me in? Loop me in? I felt like a waitress overhearing her table plan a wedding I was supposed to be the bride in. He said it so casually, like they were planning to loop me in to the future of a business I'd poured my youth into. Meanwhile, my cousin who couldn't tell a pâte brisée from a Pop-Tart was making 6-figure projections on a business she'd never even worked a holiday shift for. I didn't say anything else. I just picked up the whole proposal, stuffed it in my purse, and walked out the door without a word. And that's how I ended up standing in my dad's kitchen 3 nights later at Sunday dinner with mashed potatoes on the table and a decision burning in my chest. "Since when am I just staff?" I asked. And the silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. "Since when am I just staff?" I said, placing Sierra's proposal in the middle of the table, right between the roast chicken and the damn dinner rolls. The silence that followed was deafening. My dad didn't look up right away. He just kept slicing his meat like I hadn't said a word. My Aunt Bonnie reached for her wine like she wished she could teleport out of the room. Sierra sat there frozen, her fork halfway to her mouth. I felt like I'd cracked something wide open, something everyone else had agreed not to talk about, like some unspoken family pact I never got the memo on. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. "This isn't the time, Jenna." "No," I said, louder than I meant to. My voice shook. "The time was before you started drawing up financials and talking about ownership changes without the person who's been keeping this place afloat for a decade." Sierra put her fork down. "I didn't mean to go behind your back. Uncle Rick asked me to help modernize the brand. That's all." "That's all?" I laughed. "You called it Phase 3, New Ownership Structure. Sounds more than a little strategic to me." Bonnie tried to smooth things over with her usual BS. "Sweetheart, nobody's trying to replace you. We all know how hard you work." "Then why," I cut her off, "is my name nowhere in a 24-page plan about the future of my bakery?" My dad finally looked up. "Because we needed a vision, Jenna. You're great in the kitchen, no one's denying that. But you don't see the big picture." I actually felt my breath leave my body, like I'd been punched. "The big picture?" I repeated. "You mean the one I sacrificed my 20s for? The one I ran while you were recovering? The one I've basically kept alive solo since I was 19? "It's not personal," he said, like that somehow made it better. "It's entirely personal," I snapped. "You just handed the steering wheel to someone who didn't even know what a proofing basket was 6 weeks ago." Sierra's voice was small. "Jenna, I'm not trying to take anything from you." "Then why are you getting a title and a plan while I'm over here scrubbing icing off the damn ceiling after the high schooler botched a sheet cake?" No one answered. I stared at my dad, this man who used to kneel beside me when I decorated cookies at age 5, who once told me I had magic hands for pastry, and I didn't recognize him anymore. His face was stone, a stone I'd spent 10 years carving myself bloody against. "I quit," I said. Bonnie gasped. Sierra opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, but I held up a hand. "Number, I'm done. If I'm not good enough to be included in the plans, I'm not going to stick around just to be someone's backup baker while she live posts her rebranding journey." "Jenna," my dad said, suddenly standing, "be reasonable. This is your family." "No," I said, grabbing my coat. "This is your business." And apparently I was just labor. I walked out, left my slice of pie untouched on the table, which should tell you everything about my state of mind, and no one followed me. Not one person tried to stop me. That night, I sat in my car for a full hour outside the bakery, lights off, just staring at it. The sign still said Whitaker's Pie House. The windows still had my hand-drawn fall favorites lettering on them. My chest hurt like I was watching someone else's life through glass. The next morning, I didn't open the shop. I turned off my phone. Didn't answer Sierra's texts. "Can we talk?" Or Bonnie's voicemails. My dad didn't even try. Instead, I drove 2 hours to Door County and sat on a beach with a thermos of coffee and a notebook I hadn't written in since high school. The waves were loud. For the first time in years, I could hear myself think. But nothing hit me harder than what I saw when I got home late that night. On the front page of the bakery's website, one I had helped build years ago, was a photo of Sierra in our kitchen, holding a pie I'd created, smiling like she belonged there. The caption? "Meet the new face of Whitaker's." I didn't cry right away. When I saw that photo of Sierra, standing in my kitchen holding my pie under the words, "Meet the new face of Whitaker's," I just froze. Not angry, not even shocked. Just cold. Like something inside me had quietly shut off. I sat at the edge of my bed, shoes still on, coat still zipped, and stared at my laptop screen until it dimmed. Then I shut it, laid back, and stared at the ceiling for hours. The next day, I cleaned my entire apartment top to bottom. Not because it needed it, but because I couldn't stand the silence. I scrubbed behind the stove, regrouted the bathroom tile, even cleaned the crumbs out of the toaster. Anything to keep my hands moving. By day 3, the silence became unbearable. I hadn't spoken to anyone in 72 hours. No texts, no calls, no, "Hey, you okay?" from Dad. No apology from Sierra. Just nothing. So I packed an overnight bag and drove 2.5 hours north to a cheap roadside lodge with a lake view and terrible Wi-Fi. I needed somewhere to think. Somewhere that didn't smell like cinnamon and shame. The place was quiet, which was good. Except at night. That's when everything hit me hardest. 10 years. I gave them 10 years. I gave up college, birthdays, every real relationship I might have had. I spent holidays baking for other people's families while mine was quietly deciding I wasn't part of theirs anymore. I started writing it all down in a notebook I bought at the gas station. Not for a blog or anything, just for myself. Somewhere in those pages, I found this strange mix of grief and rage and relief. Like I was finally letting go of a version of myself that had been duct taped together for way too long. That's when I got the email. It was from a woman named Claire Romero. I didn't recognize the name at first, but she was one of our oldest customers, used to come in every Sunday with her kids and buy 3 mini pies and a coffee, always the same. She wrote, "Hi, Jenna. I heard you're no longer at Whitaker's. I'm so sorry. If it's true, I just want you to know your kindness meant everything to me and my girls during a really hard time. We miss you. Please let us know if you ever start something new. We'll be there on day 1. I don't know why that email broke me, but it did. I sat in that motel room with my laptop open and just sobbed. Not for the bakery, not even for my dad, but for the simple truth that I had mattered to people. Quietly, consistently, in ways I didn't always see. It also lit something under me. Maybe I didn't have a 5-year plan. Maybe I didn't have investors or trendy branding. But I had people. I had recipes. I had experience. I also had a list, a mental one, of vendors, customers, and most importantly, clients who always asked for me, not the brand. One of them being Lacey Penn, who ran the catering company that did 90% of events in our region. I hadn't heard from her since I walked out, until now. That night, she called. "Jenna," she said, "I'm pulling all my orders from Whitaker's." I sat up straight. Wait, what? I went in last week. The pies tasted off. The crusts were hard, fillings too sweet. I asked Sierra if the recipes had changed, and she told me, "We're evolving the palate of the brand." My jaw dropped. Lacey continued. I told her I was out. "If you ever open your own kitchen, I'll double what I used to order. Just say the word." I thanked her, hung up, and immediately opened a blank document on my laptop. I didn't know what it would become. A pop-up? A newsletter? A pre-order list? I just knew I had to start something. Then, out of pure curiosity, I typed in the Whitaker's website again. It had changed. Again. This time, it was a blog post from Sierra, titled, "Honoring the Past While Embracing the Future." Subtitle, "How Stepping into My Family's Legacy Inspired My Journey as a Culinary Founder." She had posted photos of my childhood baking journal, pages I had kept hidden in the back of the pantry, private recipes, childhood notes, drawings of pies I'd designed at age 13. She used them like they were hers. That was the moment I broke. It wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. Like I'd never been there at all. And if you've ever felt like your entire identity was handed off to someone else with a smile and a press release, if you've ever been replaced without being acknowledged, if you've ever been silently erased from your own story, I see you. You're not alone. And I hope you never stop telling your side of it. There's a certain kind of rage that doesn't shout. It sharpens. After seeing my childhood baking journal paraded on Sierra's blog like she'd scribbled it between yoga and turmeric lattes, something in me clicked. Not like a meltdown. No tears, just clarity. They wanted a new face for the bakery? Fine, I was going to give them a face they couldn't ignore. I started with what I had. A notebook full of recipes, a handful of loyal vendors who still answered my calls, and a contact list of every wedding coordinator, food writer, and event planner I'd quietly kept happy for a decade. And most importantly, I had a name people trusted. Not Whitaker's. Mine. I didn't even need a storefront, just a space and a permit. So I called Claire Romero, the woman who'd emailed me. Turns out she and her sister were opening a women-led co-op kitchen just outside of town. Claire said, "If you're serious, we'll clear a slot for you tomorrow. No rent for the first 2 months. We believe in what you do." I almost cried right there on the phone. By the end of that week, I had a name. Brass Crust. No frilly script. No farmhouse aesthetic. Just grit, butter, and unapologetic ownership. I started soft. A pop-up table at the Saturday Farmers Market. 6 pies. Limited flavors. Handwritten signs. Sold out in 40 minutes. By week 2, I had a wait list. By week 4, I had 3 wedding orders. Word spread fast, especially when people realized I wasn't just selling pies. I was reclaiming something stolen. And then came the message from Dad. Just 4 words. "We need to talk." I didn't respond, but I knew he'd show up. He always did when the consequences started costing money. Sure enough, a day later, he was at the co-op kitchen, standing in the doorway like he still had the right to look proud of me. "You've made your point," he said. "No," I replied, rolling out dough without looking at him. "I'm making something else now. There's a difference." He hesitated. "Sierra's struggling. Orders are down. The online reviews are—" I cut him off. "Bad?" He didn't answer. Then, like it was nothing, he said, "Come back. We'll give you your position back. Lead baker. Full control over production. Hell, we'll even give you a title if that matters." I stopped mid-roll and looked him dead in the eye. "That's cute. But I don't want a title, Dad. I want ownership." His face went stiff. "Sierra owns 60%. I have 30. Bonnie holds the rest." I smiled. "Then someone's selling." He sputtered. "You're being emotional." "No," I said calmly. "I was emotional when I stood at your dinner table and quit. This is just business." He left, jaw tight, like he was chewing on the idea that his daughter had grown teeth. That night, Sierra called me. She sounded tired, maybe for the first time in her life. "Jenna, I didn't know those journals meant that much to you. I thought they were nostalgic, like decorative." "They were mine," I said. "I know, I messed up." I stayed silent. Then she said something I didn't expect. "I'll give you my shares. All of them." I sat up straight. "Why?" "Because I hate it," she whispered. "The stress, the reviews, the deadlines. Everyone wants your pies, your voice, your recipes. I'm just a placeholder." I should have felt victorious, but I didn't. I just felt tired. 2 days later, I met with their lawyer. We drafted a complete transfer agreement. Sierra would retain no rights. My father, reluctantly, agreed to release 10% of his shares. Bonnie didn't even show. When the ink dried, I walked out of that office the majority owner of Whitaker's Pie House. But here's the twist. I didn't take it back. I sold the brand. Logo, building, website, everything. To a real estate developer who wanted to turn the space into a community art studio with a small cafe. They paid double what it was worth, probably for the nostalgia value. Whitaker's would be gone by spring. And Brass Crust? Brass Crust would rise on my terms. And if you've ever been told you weren't visionary enough or part of the plan, if someone used your silence as permission to overwrite your story, know this, you don't always have to win back what they stole. Sometimes the real power is walking away and building something they can never touch. The last day of Whitaker's Pie House was weirdly quiet. No grand reopening, no final sale, no farewell post from Sierra or Bonnie. Just a printed sign on the door that said, "Closed for renovations." Which we all knew was a lie. I didn't go to watch the demolition. I thought I would. I thought I'd want to stand there with a coffee and smirk while the old facade came down. But the truth is, by then, I was too busy. Brass Crust had its own storefront now. A cozy corner building 2 blocks from the old place, Big windows, clean lines, no fake rustic charm. The logo was embossed on the glass in gold, unapologetic and sharp, like I'd always wished I could be. Opening weekend? We sold out before noon. By month 3, I had to hire 2 full-time bakers. By month 5, we were featured in a statewide food blog with the headline, "The Rise of Brass Crust from Betrayal to Beloved." But the part I didn't expect was what happened to my dad. See, after I walked away and Sierra transferred her shares, things unraveled fast. Turns out Dad had leveraged part of the business to fund some expansion plans Sierra cooked up without telling me. He expected the brand to carry itself. But with the backlash online and reviews tanking, the lenders came knocking. Whitaker's name didn't save him. For the first time in my life, I saw my father lose. Not just the business, but the illusion that he had control over everything. The man who once told me, "This place is in your blood," ended up sitting in a folding chair at the back of my shop's soft launch, sipping drip coffee in silence while strangers lined up for a slice of my butterscotch pecan. He didn't say anything that day, just left a note under his mug. "You did it. I was wrong." I didn't call him. Forgiveness is complicated when the wound came from someone who raised you. Someone who taught you to knead dough and run numbers, then sold your life's work for a prettier pitch deck. But I carried the note in my wallet for weeks. Not because I needed his approval, because it reminded me that justice doesn't always come as a courtroom moment or a public apology. Sometimes it's just the silence of people realizing you don't need them anymore. 6 months later, I was invited to speak at a local women's business summit. The theme was resilience in small business. I almost didn't go. Public speaking's never been my thing. But I stood on that stage and told the truth. I told them I had once worked 70 hours a week for a family that replaced me like a broken oven. That they used my recipes, my journals, my name, and my silence. And I told them how I took it all back without ever stepping foot in that kitchen again. The applause caught me off guard. Not because of the noise, because of the tears. There were women in the front row crying, nodding, like I had said something they weren't allowed to say out loud about their own jobs, their own families, their own worth. That night, I closed Brass Crust early and walked to the empty lot where Whitaker's used to be. Now it's a community art studio. There's a mural going up. Bold colors, wide strokes. Kids were painting, laughing, making a mess. And for the first time since this whole damn saga started, I didn't feel angry anymore. Just clean. I stood there a while, watching. Then I whispered, "Just for me. This time, the story's mine."